Sorry about that. Today we are back from Men's Couch. We are here ready to talk about an important subject, and the subject is conflict, communication, and support when it comes to friendship. And so, sorry. So, yeah, today we're here to discuss this. We're here to tackle the subject and just to open it up. I guess I'll start with the importance of communication. Sometimes we feel like communication is like less represented in friendship, and maybe it's more open to like romantic relationships, but communication is just as important in friendship as well. So, and we want to come to emphasize that. Um, let's start off with Angie. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think a common problem in relationships regarding communication is that often relationships are built off of simple monologues where there may be people involved in a relationship, and when problems occur or conflict happens, one of the parties will automatically assume what the other one thinks without necessarily trying to communicate across to their friend or partner or whoever it may be, and ask how they really feel. Instead of that, they have a monologue and not a dialogue, and they don't communicate. And I think communication is absolutely vital in every single relationship, because without communication, you can't establish boundaries, you can't establish respect, you can't establish anything. So, yeah, I think communication is absolutely important in every single aspect.
So you think there's like a lot of like people can like have like develop assumptions
Yeah.
based on someone without like communicating those like important things.
Yeah. They develop assumptions about how the other person is kind of facing the conflict,
Mm-hmm.
or they even build assumptions of why that problem was caused in their eyes from the other person's point of view.
So they try to be the other person without
Yeah.
actually like getting to know the other
Yeah,
person.
because they try to take in information in their own way, but they forget that every other person is absolutely different, and they may not necessarily view the exact same thing the exact same way.
Right.
So
right.
that's where commonly miscommunication happens, or assumptions, or things get in the way of relationships being able to evolve. So
Okay. Mr. Dudek.
All right, it's Mr. Blackwell. For your information, I think communication can mean like a lot of things. Like communicating with other people can have an impact on other people because maybe you're like trying to talk to them or speaking like a perspective that people like to be spoken in. And also like in communication, use like body language to like talk to other people with like their common sense, or like say for example like if you're like trying to look someone eye to eye, that can be an example of communication because you're communicating with that other person. Or it can also mean like keeping them like in touch, or say texting for example. Like if you know like something's going on, like you can communicate with that other person so they know like what they can do.
Right. I think that's another aspect of communication is nonverbal and just like body language. I would say like I try to like not read into like my friend's mind, but like I would try to like go off based off like their body language of like maybe how they're feeling. Like okay, this person's very like they're on their phone, they have their head down. I try to be like, okay, this person doesn't want to be bothered. So that's like a thing for me. It's like, you know, they don't have to like tell me. I can just like they're communicating with their body language. Like this isn't like I don't want that's their boundary that they're setting is I don't want to be bothered.
Yes.
And yeah.
Body language is also like another big one because you're like interacting using your body. Like if you want to communicate, like you can use your hands for example to like communicate with the other person. But in nonverbal cases, however, people don't like speak one bit, although they still like express body language. They're not like as communicative as people who are verbal, and people can like relate to that because like there's a huge difference between both of them. Saying like if you are verbal, like you can actually talk to the other person using body language, but if you're nonverbal, like you can't speak at all, and people have like a harder time expressing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I could like share my opinion, I personally think that body language is important. But I also think that it's important to also be aware of the fact that body language is kind of like a standardized, like generalized like idea, but it's not the same for every person.
Yeah.
So body language is important, but you can't solely base a relationship or an opinion off of someone only based on body language. Because certain people, like, there's different coping methods, there's different body language. For example, like, something that we see a lot in the, here's my little criminal justice major coming out, is that in, like, investigations, you would think that, like, the generalized, like, way of reacting to a tragedy is crying. And that's not always the case. Some people, they have, like, no reaction physically, but it's all internal, so we can't really kind of like crucify someone over not having the body language that we expect them to have. But I do think there's a line between body language and being respectful. So like, for example, you brought up that if you see that somebody's on their phone or has their head down and they are like kind of seemingly unapproachable, I feel like there is a line between that, where if you're having an interaction with a friend or anyone else, you should be like engaging, and if you're not engaging, then like they're probably, you never know, there could be going on a lot in somebody's day and that could influence that. But I also think that it's a sign of respect, when you're talking to someone,
communicate like, hey, I'm not like able to have like, I'm not emotionally here, so that like so I think that's another thing too, is with we live in a generation of phones and screens, and I think for me recently it's just been more of just learning how to be like more emotionally in tune, like in conversations. So like I'm like present instead of like on my phone, because before, when I was like knee deep in social anxiety, I would use my phone as a way to like escape like the conversation because I was like uncomfortable.
Right.
But now I'm like learning how to like communicate, like be okay with just being present in a conversation. And sometimes like so like I would like think like it's just like overwhelming to the other person, like how I'm like looking at them, like making eye contact. Like eye contact is such a huge like important thing for me, and just like how I'm like sitting is like making sure like that I'm open, and like when like with how I'm sitting, and just so that I'm not like sending the signal of I don't want to be bothered. Because I mean, and then in some cases, people that do have like the head down, like they're in their phone, sometimes they do want company, but they don't know how to like communicate that.
Right.
And that's why I was saying that it's important not to judge someone solely based off of like nonverbal communication, because like you said, you mentioned that you had social anxiety. That didn't necessarily mean you were like, I'm disrespecting you on purpose. It was just your way of reacting, your way of coping. But it's interesting because if maybe like from another person's perspective, they would have been like, oh, Micah's just being disrespectful. So that's where it comes in like to play, where maybe like assumptions, like assuming that everyone has the same mindset you do, but you really don't know what's going on deep down.
Yeah, because usually like they're afraid of like speaking out or approaching other people.
So that's where maybe not always generalizing like nonverbal communication. It is important, but it's not fair to just judge someone based only off of that.
Yeah, especially when it comes to making friends. I'm always what's on there? So especially when it comes to making friends, I'm always I'm always one to like guess, like when I see like someone is um seem to be like closed off, I'll assume that I'm like coming on too strong or something about me. But that goes into like that assumption, like how can we think more open openly about someone else, and what is body language to this like other person might not be body language to us.
Yeah.
Um, it can be tricky because we're dealing with like many different personalities, and that's like a huge thing when it comes to like trying to communicate with someone. And because this happened to me a lot recently, where it's just like this person, either they didn't like respond in the time that I think they should, whether through like a message, or like they were kind of like have their head down, and then just like not saying anything. But I like how you mentioned when you said someone said hi to you, and they, or like they didn't, the other person didn't see you like earlier.
Yeah, so was that from when you were saying?
Like like at when we were at dinner.
So I've been in situations where I've been waving at people and then they like, and I've done it too, like where somebody might be waving at you and you zone off on them or
Mhm.
close into their direction and they may think that you're purposely ignoring them.
Yeah.
But especially when you're tired, especially when I'm tired, I tend to zone off a lot and like
Yeah.
stare at things. So that's even little things like that is like, oh, you looked at me and you ignored me. No, I was looking, I was zoning
In
off
your
on
area.
you. Yeah.
So it's
like
like,
in your own little world, pretty much.
and that's where like our rejection assumptions come up. We assume it's the other person is rejecting us, but we're really they're just like kind of just like spaced out. And I'll like do that, and then someone will like come back to me later. It's like, I said hi to you. I was like, what are you talking about? So it's just like kind of like they're like my body language is that I'm like, to me I'm spaced out, but to them that means like say hi, because like I see you. I don't really see you. I just look in your direction.
Yeah.
And it can be very,
Right.
very like tricky when it comes to that, because that like fear of rejection just comes up because we're like afraid of that the other person doesn't like us based on like their communication style, or
Yeah.
Yeah. And going off of like what you two said earlier, like,
so I have to use my phone for like, because in case the system doesn't work.
very good. Like going off of what Angie and Micah said, like, people don't communicate because they're like afraid to speak out, or they're afraid to like interact with the other person who's like trying to speak to them. And I think that can relate a lot to like what Micah said, like people's body languages or what view they have in their life. Maybe someone can be like going through something, or someone can be like dealing with issues. Like that's why they don't want to like communicate with the other person. They think like they have their own little world to themselves. But really, like sometimes in life, you have to like communicate with that other person in order to like make friends or like be on the same page as that person.
I like your insight. Yeah, it's when it comes to communication, um, it's super hard for me because of my history with social anxiety, and just that it's been, especially when it comes to like maybe if we want to talk about making new friends in communication, that could be super hard, because um like I'm always like maybe like afraid to communicate in the way that I do, and like the person will just not like that communication style. It's always that fear of rejection, which we can talk about today. It's like the fear of like rejection of, when I communicate like this person's gonna like reject me, because maybe that's not how they communicate, or they're just they just don't like they don't like me. It's like that fear, that inherent fear that they wouldn't like me. And it's like I've overcoming this fear of rejection. I had to overcome like my fear of communication. So I'm like interested to know like how have you guys like tried to overcome fear of rejection?
So I try not to like dwell on the situation of people
Mhm.
rejecting me. Like if I know I'm going to be rejected, I just like walk away from the situation. And I pretty much do that because if I know like someone's going to reject me, for example, they're going to say like, we don't want you in your group, or we don't want you like interacting with us. And so again, I just walk away.
Like, don't take it personally.
What'd you say?
Like, don't take it personally.
Yeah, like they don't take things personally. For example, saying like, hey, you can't be in our group because I'm afraid you would do that. And so again, I walk away because, you know, something bad might happen, or I pretend like it's not even going to happen in the first place.
Sorry, I was just making sure because I didn't want to cut you off.
Oh, you're good. I saw you laughing there for 1 second. I was like, what's going on?
No. Yeah, I feel like rejection, it's kind of like an ongoing journey. So I feel like the natural human instinct is to want to fit in. And I feel like something that's helped me a lot is...
Can you tell them we're in the podcast room? In the group. Okay, guys. Sorry.
Sorry.
Okay. Sounds like Royce.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Communication, guys.
Sorry,
Communication.
where was I? Oh, yeah. So I feel like I've grown a lot with coming to terms with the fact that just because you're rejected from in any aspect doesn't mean that you're like
doing wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're probably doing great, and maybe it's the other person who just maybe can't connect with you, or their own like backgrounds have led them to kind of view things in a different way, and that's not necessarily a problem. It's just the fact that there won't be connection, and also keeping in mind that you're not in life, you're not gonna always be everyone's cup of tea, and not everybody's gonna be your cup of tea either. So it's always just that, and I know that sometimes we can make mistakes when we make new friends or communication.
Oh, yes.
But we also shouldn't be too hard on ourselves and think that every relationship that doesn't work out is because
it's our
own issues.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just my own personal insight on that.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah.
Wow.
I think, it's important to not personalize like someone's reaction towards you. It has nothing to do with you. It's really about that person, and it's super important to understand that, because if you like internalize everyone's like reaction towards you, then you just are gonna put walls up, and you don't want to like try. Which is kind of like part of like my backstory is that I like now you guys see me as like very like friendly and like very open and welcoming, but like it wasn't always like that, and I feel like it's more like a learned thing that I've had to learn to tap into, because before it was more like avoidance of new friendship, because I didn't think that people would accept me. So I think now it's more of like getting used to people accepting me instead of just getting used to the voice of rejection. And that's and when it comes to communication, is being confident to communicate to a new person or new friend that you find interest in. Like you guys seen me today, like at dinner, just like waving at people. Like that's like, to me, that's like, for me, that communication style is that I'm interested.
Aaron.
What?
Like Aaron.
Well, Aaron, or like the just newer people, it's like that is my communication to the other person, that hey, I would like to get to know you. I like to potentially develop a friendship with you. That is like my communication style. Other ways are maybe, I think sometimes I'll compliment someone, but it's mostly like me like waving at people, and it's like, hey, people that I see every day. But when it comes to conflict, this is a very heavy it comes to heavy, and this is after you've gotten to known someone, or after you've developed a friendship with someone, is that we're going to face conflict. Is like, what do we, what does it look like to resolve conflict in a way that is very mindful, instead of like the way that I'm used to it in high school, which is like going to someone like like fighting, like, hey. So what do we think about like mindful conflict and communication?
I feel like conflict to me, like, between, like, high school and right now, like, I feel like in high school was a lot more because people's, like, minds are not fully developed, and
That's
I think
true.
it has to do, like, a lot with the fact, like, people are with each other every day, like, 5 days a week, 7 hours a day. And, well, in college, you don't get that too much because you're with, like, different people every day, and you see them for, like, an hour for, like, two, 3 days a week. So that could definitely contribute to the factor that, people have less conflict because those things, like, relate that are different.
Hmm.
Conflict. It's interesting. I feel like conflict is an ongoing process, because I feel like every single relationship goes through their own conflict. I think in a way, obviously, like, if you have conflict every day, maybe that's not healthy.
Yeah.
But I feel like conflict every now and then is healthy in every normal relationship. Because once you become, like, kind of fond of someone, and you guys are spending a bit more time than your daily acquaintances that you see every day, you begin to grow closer, and with that closeness, you begin to really learn about a person. You begin to understand them, and also learn about things that you don't understand or don't like. And often that can lead to people butting heads.
Mm-hmm.
But the way I see it, if you're in a healthy relationship, at the end of the day, throughout healthy conflict, you still know that you love each other, or that you at least care for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then how to actually solve conflict is probably acknowledging it first. Because sometimes, like, I've been in situations where people refuse to acknowledge it, and it's like, oh, you know what, let's move on.
Oh my gosh.
Let's move on.
That
Let's
is so
just,
true.
let's act like nothing happened, or let's start off as if nothing happened. And that's, it's interesting, because you would think that, oh wow, like, that person is so understanding, like, they just want to, like, forget about it.
But it's actually like them being conflict avoidant.
But it's damaging, because then that conflict or something similar, any type of conflict, happens again and again and again. Sorry guys, minor interruption. So that conflict happens again, and then you guys never reach any sort of solution, or you never learn how to properly have a sit-down talk. Be like, hey, this is what I think, this is what happened to me, this is what's been on my mind. And then the other person says, yeah, this has been on my mind, this is what I think. They never have a sit-down conversation, and if they do, it's typically one person talking, because they've never...
So it's usually then one person that wants to resolve, and the one person that's like kind of like avoiding a situation.
Or it could be one person is just accusing.
Okay.
And then the other one's like, I'm out, you know?
Yeah.
So that... Whoa. So sometimes it's difficult to solve conflict in a relationship where you never even had an opportunity to sit down, listen to each other, and have both of you speak, not just one person speak.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the best way you can address situations and learn from the other person. Oh wow, this is what bothers them.
Mm-hmm.
And they can learn about what bothers you, and you guys can come to an agreement, and then, I don't know, follow up after some time and, you know, talk things out and be like, hey, how far do you think we've come since this past conflict? And through that, you can both mutually see how far you both have grown in that relationship.
Right.
And just communication, again, it all goes back to communication. in order for any relationship to be successful, or in order to have a good, caring relationship where you both understand each other, communication is vital. You can't do anything without communication.
Yeah, and for me, I'm super, like, I don't know if it's because, like, of me, like, just being raised as a guy, but I don't want to, like, blame it totally on that. I'm, like, super, at first, I was very conflict avoidant because I didn't know that I just didn't have, like, I guess enough confidence to work it out, or I was, like, afraid of, like, the other person's reactions, and, like, like, it's like if someone, like, is addressing something, our, like, rejection mind goes to them criticizing us when it's really they're just addressing something. I think that's why, like, I'm afraid of conflict. I'm afraid of just this person is rejecting me. So it's like it's always comes down to that fear. So I think that's why, like, I'm always afraid of conflict. But I'm getting better at conflict and communication. But another big area of that I find, especially that we've talked about today and with friendship, is support. Is how can we mindfully support someone that is going through something? I think especially men can sometimes be can have difficulty in this area because it's like someone is revealing, like, an area, maybe like I tell you guys, like, hey, I'm anxious about this presentation or whatever, but it's like, how do you sit with someone, like, in that anxiety, in or if they're going through grief, how do you do that? And it's like it's not like one of those, like, easy things. I think it's different for everyone. Like most of the topics that we discussed today, it's, like, different for everyone, and I think a lot of listening, like, listening is a huge important thing in relationships. Like, listening, like, how can we mindfully listen to what someone is saying and what they're going through?
Yeah, I think grieving and all, like, when you see a friend that's going through difficulty, it can often be very difficult to find a way to approach that. It's like, should I, like, ask her what's going on? What should I do? Because I know that sometimes there's different types of people who have different types of boundaries, and maybe they don't want to talk to you about anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like the best way, in my opinion, to approach support or offer support to someone is simply to show them that you care by telling them, hey, I'm here for you when you ever want to talk.
Like, it's an invitation.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then if you don't want to talk, but you need someone to be there, just be there, because often you may not necessarily need someone to give you comforting words or any of that. Simply just having their presence there, just there with you, can mean a lot to someone that's going through something. So just opening your availability to them whenever they may need you, and letting them know that you support them and that you'll be there for them whenever they feel ready to talk. And if they don't want to talk, your presence will always be something that they can have. Because I know that, yeah, I feel like boundaries have a huge play in that. And that also goes back to having prior communication with that person,
Yeah.
to know their boundaries and be like, hey, in this situation, I won't overstep. I'll offer myself as support, and then, because you also can't force the person to talk. You
Yeah.
can't force them to open up to you, and if you do, you'll just push them farther away.
Yeah.
And
I think that's happened to me
yeah.
in the past. Is like I've tried to get someone to open up about, like, who they are and what's going on, but, like, they kind of just, like, ran away. So I've kind of learned to just, like, let there be space for them.
Restroom.
Okay.
I'll be right back, everyone. I'm just gonna step out for a few minutes.
Okay. Like, let there be space for that to happen, so that it's more welcoming instead of like forced. But yeah, it's tough because that's like something that we were talking about today. It's like how can when someone is grieving or they're like revealing something that's on their mind, how can we have like a discussion, or how can I, based on like what the person needs,
Mhm.
based on like what the what the person needs, how can we have how can I support them? And I think a lot of it is just being like present with them or just being there with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know. It can be frustrating sometimes. Not gonna lie, it can sometimes be frustrating when you're like more of a direct person who likes
Mhm.
to
Talk.
address things and
Bring it
just let things be known, or if somebody asks you like, are you upset? You just like to be honest. And sometimes it
Mhm.
can be difficult having relationships with people who are more avoidant
Yes.
or people who don't want to acknowledge things,
Yeah.
because it leaves you also confused.
Like you want to know what's going on so that you know how to
Yeah.
react. But like when you don't know what's going on, it's like it leaves you like kind of like in that spiral of like what's going on.
And I do think that in a way there should be compromise from both ends.
Mm-hmm.
Like, from people who are direct and want answers, they should be open to hearing answers when they're given, but also maintaining respect for not prying at another person.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like a compromise for someone who's avoidant is maybe communicating when things are necessary.
Yeah.
Because I do know that avoidant people can probably avoid, hence their name, avoid things, but I do think that in vital situations it is important that you kind of step over the I'm avoidant, ha ha ha, and like try to actually build towards fixing that.
Yeah.
Or improving, or at least communicating in some way, you know?
Like communicate what is going on,
Yeah.
so that you're not leaving like the other person confused.
Or like, I think a really good example is ghosting. You know?
Ooh, ghosting.
Like when they're
I have a lot to
ghosted,
say about that.
Yeah, or not in different situations. Like I know that maybe in like dangerous situations, that might be the only option you have.
That's only in those extreme
Yeah.
situations though.
But I feel like when you're in a relationship basis,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't want to talk, at least
Communicate that.
to be like, hey, I don't want to talk, and at least let that person know that they're whatever is gonna happen is gonna happen. So at least say no. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because on this podcast, I've talked a lot about ghosting. You can like go watch the episode on ghosting, because ghosting is such a huge thing. I feel like I don't know if it's more pronounced now because of our devices and because of our phones, but I was actually doing research back. I was doing research about like the history of ghosting, like before, when you like wrote a letter to someone or you try to call them and they didn't respond. That was kind of like ghosting back then, but I feel like ghosting now is like more kind of like up in your face, because you're like when you're see on your phone that this person hasn't responded in like months and you're trying to like reach out to them. That's like kind of what I consider ghosting. It's like an abrupt like communication, like
a cut.
a cut off. It's just like what happened. And I think I talked to you about this a lot. It's like how my ghosting experiences with when people are just like suddenly drop off the face of the earth and you try to like reach out to them and it's just like you hear like zero, like silence. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they act like they speak to you, but really they don't.
No.
Yeah, I do feel like that's a huge issue. I know that things can happen in life, but honestly, for the most part, people just ghost you for literally no reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like when that happens, you just have to brush it off and keep your crown, you queens and kings. Because I feel like that just simply reflects the lack of respect that they have for you and the lack of respect they have for the relationship. Because
or
I feel
themselves.
like, yeah.
Because like I feel like if someone is like is if someone is like uncomfortable with themselves, then they're not going to be comfortable with like communication. So I feel like that reveals a lot about like who they are. Like that like them ghosting is basically saying like I'm uncomfortable with communication, or like sort of like an underlying anxiety around
It's
communication.
projecting themselves.
So that makes them
Yeah.
like avoid communication.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say? I don't want to cut you off.
It was going along the same thing that often like projecting is a huge thing in relationships. It goes along with what we were saying about different styles of
Communication
communication.
or conflict.
And also like sometimes with ghosting too, they don't have respect clearly. Because
Yeah.
I feel like no matter what terms, if they were good or bad, obviously if it's a safe thing, but just
Yeah.
toxic in its own way, you would at least have the respect to communicate to the other person, hey, this isn't going to work out. You'll never see me again, you know? And let
Okay.
them know what's going on, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of like in ghosting, what Angie just said, like when someone is trying to ghost you, they're like offering you like a temptation to like do something, but people would usually say no because it can get you like in trouble, and like
Mhm.
that can relate a lot because ghosting can be like fake people. People are like out to get you or attacking you somewhere. So I think that can relate. Also, like in fake people, they tend to be like nice in the first place, but next thing you know, like after a while of getting to know you, they stop supporting you and kind of give you like temptations, saying like, "I dare you to do this, I dare you to do that."
Well, what situation were you in? I don't know what.
Wait, what?
What happened? What?
That sounds.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I'm just giving you like support details on
Okay.
what can really happen when
Okay.
people like try to ghost you.
Yeah. Yeah, my experience of ghosting, and I've done like research on this, ghosting is actually related to the avoidant attachment style. So, people with avoidant attachment style are more likely to ghost because they're actually, and this is based on like some research that I've done, they're actually like afraid of rejection, even though it doesn't look like it. They're like, okay, I'm just gonna like cut off this before
When
it
they cut
gets
me off.
what?
Yeah, yeah.
I'll just actually cut this off before this person has the potential to reject me, or I'm afraid that I don't know what how to handle this, so I'm just gonna like just become unapproachable because they might not like consciously think that, but that's like their natural reaction because of their attachment style.
And like, I don't think it's only like a natural reaction for avoidant people. It's a natural reaction for the human instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Because we do live in a world where it's like, eat or get eaten.
Yeah.
And in that way, it's like, I'll reject you before you have a
I
chance
know
to
it's like
even
a
think of rejecting me.
self protection, but also self sabotage too.
Yeah, and they
like
don't
the-
even, a lot of them don't even realize it. They think that they're genuinely doing themselves a favor
Yeah.
by doing that. So now that we've spoken about like communication, a bit about friendship, conflicts, how do you guys view like start of friendships? Are you typically the ones who like, do you think it's right to start a friendship out quickly, or do you think it should be slower paced?
I think
That's
from
such a
like
good
my
question.
perspective, what's that?
That's such a good question.
Sorry if I cut you off.
You're fine.
So I think from my first perspective, like starting a friendship can be like first like introducing yourselves, or and then like next thing you know, like ask them like, hey, what do you like to do for fun, or like ask basic questions about themselves,
Mhm.
saying like, what's your major, or kind of like what I said, and then from there like ask them if they like want to go out to eat or go out shopping at the mall. That's how I did in the past, like making new friends and like interacting with other people, and eventually like after doing that, like it starts to build up, like taking up a notch, like good friends, then best friends if you've been like friends for a while. So it just like takes time to like get to those stages when you're like going out with those people.
So, that's such a good question, because I feel like I'm so. feel like I'm still working on this of like how to actually start a friendship, how to communicate your desire to want to start a friendship. Um, I, it's oh my gosh. I think for me, I've always had like a fear of seeming like too enthusiastic about starting a friendship. Like I'm always like afraid of, okay, this person's gonna like I'm gonna like like scare this person away by like my enthusiasm and excitement to start this friendship. But usually, as I've seen like so far in college, has been like the complete opposite. Like usually people like are more open to that. But I think so I kind of have like two ways of how I do that. I usually kind of just I'll like develop the friendship over a couple of months and see like, and then I will ask them to do things or try to engage with them. It will be like over a couple months, but then like with other people, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like it's like I feel like it's kind of like that. What do you call that?
Click.
Like the click.
Like they click in right away.
The initial like click, and it was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, I'm so enthusiastic about starting a friendship with you, and it's weird because I feel like I have that more with like I have that more with other people with certain people than others, but actually, what on earth? But actually, actually, I feel like the two ways of starting a friendship are neither good or bad. I think they work for the situation. Um, I think it's okay to like to wait and just test the waters and give it time and patience when starting a friendship. But it's okay to show your enthusiasm when you do start a friendship. It's like, oh my gosh, I like this person. It's okay to do that. It's okay, and I think I'm trying to be okay with that. For me, like starting a friendship has always like revolved around fear, like fear of like me not knowing how to do it, or just fear of like the other person's reaction. But that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think most of the time people do have fear of making new friends because they're afraid like the person's going to be rude to one another or
Yes. Yeah.
they're going to reject you.
Yeah. Preach.
And I had experiences like in the past where I had to deal with that. Like I was always afraid to like confiscate other people or like approach them in like a certain manner because I could just tell in like their personality. Like in some cases like that usually doesn't happen because some people who you think are mean can end up like really nice people. Like
I know I have that too. When I think like this person, I just assume. I'll get to this point. I'll say this point, but I want to like see what you have to say. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Point. Yeah.
I lost my train of thought. I think. Wait, no. I was gonna say something. Oh yeah, I do think that there's a difference between everyone.
Yeah.
In the fact that when you first meet someone, there's people that it takes time for that to build up, and sometimes there's people that, as much as you guys like try, there's always like a sort of awkwardness.
Yeah.
And it's difficult.
The initial awkwardness.
Yeah.
It's so difficult. and I thought it was just me.
No, and I can be super awkward.
Yeah.
Depending on like different factors, but I can be awkward. And then there's people that you just click.
Yeah.
But now that we've gotten to like how you guys view like the initial start of friendships, do you guys think there's such thing as like taking a friendship too fast?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That can happen
I do
like
think that
all the
happens.
time.
Yeah. I think that can happen. It's kind of like prematurely maybe. And we don't think about that with friendships because we were always like have that mindset with romantic relationships, but like a friendship too, sometimes we can be so excited and like it comes from a good desire, but like sometimes it's just like it's like too fast maybe for you or for the other person, and it just kind of it can be like too much. And I think we live in a fast-paced culture, and I think taking it slow really helps. It helps to just take it slow, and we want things to work like fast. We expect like things to just automatically click with someone, but getting to know someone takes time. It takes patience, and yeah.
Do you guys think, like, okay, so I've been in situations where sometimes, like, at first, when a friendship recently forms or starts or whatever, I find that I like having time alone,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not personal. I just, see, that's where I don't really know necessarily where I fall under the spectrum of being an introvert or an extrovert,
Okay.
because I find myself that in different situations I can really get along with people, and I can be very talkative and a social butterfly,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time I like need time to myself.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I've been in situations where sometimes, like, especially new friends, they want to spend like 24/7 with you, and sometimes it can be like,
Overwhelming.
you're a great person, and it's
Way too
not
much.
personal, and like, but I always need my time to myself.
Yeah.
Do you guys
Yeah.
think, like, it's always appropriate to, like, be 24/7 with a person, or
I
No.
can definitely relate because when you're like meeting a new person and you're afraid like you're pushing it way too fast, you can tend to have those feelings of being alone due to the fact that you're like doing all of that. And I can kind of relate as well because I know some friends who I pushed way too fast and I lost them in like a matter of like a few months. Now this was like back in high school,
Mm-hmm.
but now looking back to it is just I need some time alone because you might be pushing the friendship too fast, or you might just meet them and you're trying to think like if you're comfortable around them.
Yeah, I think having breaks from each other, doesn't really matter how long. I guess having breaks from each other makes the friendship more like, when I have a break from you, I'll like have more of like a desire to want to connect with you in the future, so that I can like regain my energy for the next time we meet. And I don't think like 24/7. That's very, it's a lot. That's like very overwhelming. Even it does. I don't even think it matters like personality wise. I don't think that's like normal.
no, yeah,
I don't think that's
Yeah.
normal. So like if
red
you,
flag.
so I think with someone, whether it's you or the other person, where they're like, I'm just okay to stay in today. I just kind of want to do my own thing. To allow that to be okay, because that, like, we need solitude when you're, especially me, I need like my solitude time. I tell
Same
like
here.
I tell people like, hey, I'm going to bed at this time. I at 8 p.m. I need my like time
Reference
to like
weekends.
I need my time to unwind from the day. It has nothing to do with the other person. It's just that's my time, and I think that's super okay.
Weekends I'm definitely fine with staying until like 1 a.m. out, but I can't be doing it every night like
yeah,
on school nights.
not every night. Yeah.
Because what if you're like too tired in the morning and you can't like make it to class? Like that almost happened to me today. I had
Yeah.
to wake up at like 8 o'clock and I actually woke up at like 8:35 instead.
So I think, and I don't know if you guys, if you want to wrap it up soon, because it's like kind of is where we can do a part two. It's so my thing with starting new friendships that I've done new recently is I'm befriending people that are like very different than me, and I'm wanting to like test to see where it goes, because like I've always befriended the nerds or like the people like of similar interests of me, but I don't want to like assume that I can't connect with someone based on how I perceive them to be.
Yeah.
And it could be like more fun to get to know someone of like different background or different person than you. For example, I'll give like Matthew for instance. Matthew, if you're listening to this, we're giving a shout out to you. Which, good luck in your hockey games and good luck at hockey. So he's into hockey. I don't care about hockey at all. But we connect because of our personality. Like he's super friendly, and he's actually said that he's open to talking, like being on the show. So that's an area that we can connect. Maybe I can't connect with you in hockey, but maybe I can connect with you in some other area, or maybe I can connect with you, like in this way, but maybe we connect over Super Smash Bros. It's just like it's
Yeah.
like we, well, I don't want to have like the belief that okay, we need to have all these things in common to make friends. I think having like more diversity in your friendships or groups helps you to be like open minded, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that, like, in a simplified way, like, you can be friends with someone who's completely different from you,
Yeah.
background, or anything of that sort. Because you can find similarities. Maybe your backgrounds or your hobbies or anything like that is completely different, but maybe you guys are on the same level, intelligence or emotional wise.
Oh,
So you
interesting.
can find, I don't know, you don't necessarily have to live through the same things to have similar emotional intelligence and be able
Mhm.
to understand each other through that.
We were actually talking about emotional intelligence today.
So yeah, I do think, and then maybe on the contrary, like looking at the other side of the coin, maybe there's someone where you guys don't have the same opinions on anything emotionally,
Yeah.
but you guys have similar hobbies,
Yeah.
you know?
So it's also it is that, and it's also because recently I've befriended a lot of international people. Like met a lot of international students, including Marm. So we met a lot of people that are like from different countries, and I think that's why I'm like thankful of like for doing college, is that I get to meet a lot of different people that I would have never met, like just in like my hometown. So even though these people are from different countries or from like the other side of the world, I'm still able to befriend them because on some level we're able to connect. And I think if you're afraid of making new friends, I think it's like finding pointing out the way that you are able to connect with this person, whether it be Super Smash or like emotional. You guys are both emotional on the same level of intelligence. I think looking at that instead of like emphasizing the differences, like we can acknowledge differences, but we need to see our commonalities, 'cause I think that's important.
Yeah. And speaking of like international students, like I met like a ton of international people from RMU. Like I never thought like we'd have this many people, and never thought like these people would be nice to me, especially when I met them. Like they came and welcomed me with like open minds, and like I don't know, they were just friendly to me.
Yeah. And I like to always quote Marissa Franco. She wrote the book Platonic, which I recommend people read. It's about like a friendship attachment. So she said, people like us more than what we think. And I always like to have that like sort of mantra, if you will, of like when I'm deciding to make friends, it's like people like us more than what we think. Especially coming out of high school, where it was like the environment was very socially toxic, and trying to accept that people like you in the real adult world, it's like it's totally different. Like people actually like you more than you think. It's like taking that first step, and if you don't, if you don't mesh well, you can't recover.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys pretty much summed it up really well. Just regarding that specific situation. And like also, we tend to be self-conscious,
Yes.
and we like to nitpick. Obviously, society has had a lot of influence over that, but
Yeah.
we've grown accustomed to like nitpick at everything about ourselves.
Yeah.
And something that we do a lot is try to find a reason in everything, and like this person rejected me or this person doesn't mesh well with me, there must be something
Wrong with me. It's like this
Yeah.
shame
Yeah.
based like thought. It's like this something is wrong with me that this person just doesn't want to be around me or doesn't like me. But it's like we kind of create our own like story of it.
Yeah, it's like, it is the way it is because people are still going to reject you, like, no matter what your identity is, or how you, like, approach the world, or even, like, how nice you are and friendly. People have their things going, people have, like, things going on, and I think it's, like, easier for that person to reject you because they want their, like, own personal space, or, say, for example, like, if you, like, come up to a group and say, like, hey, how are you? The other person might like say like, hey, I need some time alone. Can you please get away from me? Like, that can commonly happen to other people because if you know what they're going through or how bad it might affect them, then that person can be like, okay, maybe I do need some time alone.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's also important to be respectful, like when somebody has the trust and the openness to tell you, hey, right now's not a good time or anything like that. We should
Yeah.
always view it from an objective point of view. Hey, this person is going through something. I'll give them their time and not be like, oh, this person just doesn't like me. They don't like me anymore. They don't want to hang out
Yeah,
with me.
that's like the shame thing.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
something where we can respect that they have the right to process in their own way and have some time to themselves.
Mhm.
And that all of this roots back to communication.
It does.
So-
Everything goes back to
Yes.
communication.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we are so glad that you guys tuned in to listen to this. Do you have any final suggestions or words for our listeners?
So what I want to say to like other people, like what adds on, I can say like always be yourself. Don't worry about like what other people think of you because those people have something going on in their life that makes them the way they are. Or if a person like is upbeat and like happy all the time, like their parents raised them to do the right thing. So if you ever have problems, just always be happy, keep smiling, and hope for the best in life.
Yeah, and don't forget to communicate. Don't forget to acknowledge that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to seek help. It's okay to be open about problems. It's okay to have time to yourself. It's okay to go through whatever you're going through.
Yeah, I think as far as friendships and making friends or communicating friendships, I think, yeah, communicate yourself and like just show up authentically and openly. And that's what we have for today. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you for
Thanks.
listening.